Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining Young Ship Dubai today for our first event of 2021. This panel discussion on one of the most pressing issues affecting the maritime industry today. My name is Hari Krishna. I'm the outgoing president of Young Ship Dubai. We will be announcing elections for the new board position soon, so please keep an eye on our social media channels. Young Ship Dubai was founded in 2012 and is one of the oldest and largest international branches of Young Ship. Young Ship International was founded in Norway in the early 2000s and has grown into the leading international organization for young maritime professionals. We aim to educate people entering the industry on what they're getting themselves into. We aim to educate future participants on the pleasures that await them when they join the industry. Over the years, Young Ship Dubai has made great strides in providing professional networking opportunities and industry awareness to young professionals in the UAE maritime sector. Events like this go a long way in bridging the knowledge gap that unfortunately creeps in between the generations. Few people outside the industry are even aware of how important the maritime industry is to the global economy. Even fewer are aware of how crucial seafarers are to our industry and in turn to the global economy. So the topic at hand, crew changes during COVID-19 towards an ideal pandemic response model, is something we as an industry need to be talking about, not just amongst ourselves, but with the world at large. So it gives me great pleasure that we have some of the world's leading ship owners, shipping agents, and the UAE regulatory authorities with us today to explain this for the benefit of young maritime professionals. I thank all the speakers for taking time from your busy schedules to join us today. We're grateful to have Gina Panayotou, the founder of It's All About Shipping, one of the most recognizable young faces in global maritime media, as our moderator today. Thank you, Gina. You've been a strong supporter of Young Ship. You and I first met during ShipCon 2019, for which you were the project manager in Limassol, Cyprus. You have participated in maritime events in Dubai. And when we reached out to you to help us with this event, you readily volunteered. So thank you. I would like to also thank all our supporting organizations for their incredible support in putting this together and moving the event from a hybrid event to an online-only event at short notice. Without further ado, I will hand over to Gina to introduce the speakers and take control of the rest of this event. Thank you all once again.
Thank you very much, Harry, for that introduction. It's an honor and a great pleasure to be here today for Young Ship Dubai, your first event for this year. Definitely, I feel very honored to be a part of it and any initiative in this respect that empowers the youth. And we do have a panel of distinguished guests here today that would lead an interesting discussion. Hi to everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you're in. So it has been more than a year ago that COVID-19 has took over the world and our lives. And while we are seeing, thankfully, positive developments in this respect, such as the vaccinations, and of course, in particular in our industry, initiatives like the Neptune Declaration, we are still dealing with national lockdowns and restrictive access to borders, and our industry's driving force are key workers are stuck at sea. It has been described as a humanitarian crisis at sea, and it is. So today we are here to be discussing whether we are paving towards an ideal response model and what more can be done. And without further ado, I will introduce our exceptional panelists. So joining me today in this discussion is Lieutenant Colonel Majid Al-Rashid, who is the Director of Immigration at Port Rashid, UAE Immigration Authorities, and manages the development of the maritime sector and development in Dubai Immigration. Mohammed Al-Bastaki, who is the Manager of Marine Operations, Dubai Maritime City Authority. His main responsibilities are design and development of strategic plans. Captain Abdullah Al-Hayas, who is the Director of Marine Transport Department, UAE Federal Maritime Authority. He is the Director of Maritime Transport Affairs at the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, and he is in charge of seafarers' welfare. Mr. Ashish Medirata, Global Head of Crewing at Maersk, who is responsible for management of around 12,500 seafarers of all nationalities. Captain Yasser Hashem, Senior Manager Crewing at Bahri Ship Management, who is, Captain Yasser is highly proficient and skillful ex-mariner who has represented his country and company at many international events, including the IMO. Mr. Errol Seaman, Area General Management Lower Gulf at Inkscape, which he joined in 2017. And last but not least, the founding member of Young Ship Dubai, Cleve Figueiredo, who is the Territory Manager at Williamson Ship Services based in the Middle East Regional Office. And thank you, gentlemen, for being on this panel today. And as I mentioned at the introduction, as Harry briefed us in, COVID is a part of our life. We do not know if we are returning to normality and how. And we have seen it evolve over the past year or so in respect to expectations and the impact that it's been having. So from your perspective, each perspectives and background, I would like an opinion and first just like an opening comment on how you feel it has reshaped our industry, the world even, our businesses. Clive, maybe you would like to go first since your microphone is also unmuted.
I think from our perspective as a ship agent, right, what we experienced immediately is the reduced mobility and our ability to get things done even though we can't move around as freely as we used to before. We have obviously leaned heavily on IT, so that has been a very big change. Many processes that we did manually, now we just do it with an email or do it with an online transaction. So that has been a big shift in the way we operate. And lastly, coming to people, we found that we had to cross-train people a lot more than in the past to be able to do different roles and functions in a company at short notice in case other people are not available. So I think those were our biggest learnings over the period.
Thank you very much for that, Cliff. Indeed, very interesting points. Captain Al-Hayas, would you like to go next?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me here. It is appreciated to have such seminars in the UAE from time to another. Hopefully we'll see more seminars where different players in the industry are meeting and discussing hot topics like the one we are discussing today. As you mentioned, the pandemic has affected the industry, not our industry only, but all other industries. Coming to the maritime industry, I will say the positive things it has shown the importance of the maritime industry when the countries closed their borders, when the airport shut down, when the airlines companies stopped offering their services. The only industry which was keeping the supplies to the nations, food and medical, was the maritime industries and our heroes, the seafarers. They kept the world connected. So this is one of the things we noticed, and it is assuring everyone the importance of the maritime industry. The second things, which has been raised as well, the importance of maritime education and training. It is very dangerous to rely on one source of your seafarers. It is very critical that you diversify your seafarers' countries. The importance of attracting young ship, either from the UAE or from the regions, to come to the maritime education training. If one country's your main source of seafarer has been affected by pandemics, by securities, by strikes, your industry will be affected within your countries. As well, digitalization, autonomous ships, I think we'll see a lot of support going in this direction.
Great, thank you very much, Captain. Mr. Medirata, would you like to go next on your input?
Yeah. Yeah, Gina, thank you very much. And I think it's a pleasure to be here. And, I really would like to thank all of you for organizing this and bringing a topic very close to my heart, at least, and to many more, to the forefront, right? And it's good to see that it's just not the companies which are looking at, but there are more people also working on that. Yeah, and couple of points. One is it at least made us realize that we took too many things for granted, that life is normal, right? But no one saw COVID coming, and it was a rude, I would say, wake-up call that don't take life for granted, and things can change overnight, right? So which has been tough. And as you know, it was mentioned by Mr. Abdullah also about the seafarers. They have been on the background doing a major part of the world business. Probably this has got them to the forefront, and we can always discuss have they really got the reward or the recognition they deserve? Maybe not, but at least we are in the direction of doing it. So, you know, a lot of places, people working from home, and stressful on that account. So it's changed the world, it's changed our thought process, and I think we should come out stronger, and that's more important, right? But yeah, thank you.
Indeed, we'll be coming out stronger for sure. And Mr. Al-Bastaki?
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you, everyone, and especially who's behind this event. We did, you know, a lot of job when they shut down everything. I appreciate a lot of people, they're working in the seaside. It was, you know, the big challenge for everyone when they shut down everything and they locked down everywhere. The people in the sea, they was working very hard to bring the foods and everything, you know, they do the impossible just to bring everything to the people. It was this very big challenge. And at the same time, the people in the UAE, I'm talking about the UAE, they was working very, very hard. Nobody see him, but they was working and they try to make the life easy, and nobody feel that there is a very big problem, and they're feeling, you know, the food was good, and medicine, everything, as Sheikh Mohammed say, always, you know, the food and the medicine, this is red line and nobody can pass that. But it's not good, alhamdulillah. We appreciate everyone. And we have challenge now. I think, again, the COVID start again going up. I think the numbers today, I saw a lot of numbers. It reached to 3,000 something, 3,600. But again, I say one more thing, always the seafarer, they are always the most important. We have to give them, you know, more power and more help. This is from our, as an authority, we have to help them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, most welcome.
Lieutenant Rashid, would you like to share your views also on this matter?
Thank you, Faiz, for having me here. Actually, from my point of view, what we are seeing that the UAE has succeeded in creating a leading position and a distinguished reputation on the global maritime sector, relying on a set of strategic elements that help it enhance its global competitiveness and overall overcome all challenges, including those especially imposed by COVID-19 virus on the global maritime sector, to become a survival ship for regional and global trade with the services we provided by immigration. So we try to make it as easy as we can for seamen who been stuck in the overseas, and this was one of the main goal and supported by our government.
And truly, I feel that the UAE has been one of the success stories, which we will be discussing later today, of course. Mr. Seaman, if you would like to share your input in this respect also.
Yep, thank you very much, Gina, and to Harry as well, and Youngship for inviting us to be part of this. Inchcape, being one of the global players, I think, along with everyone else in this world, has suddenly experienced quite a bit of shock when the pandemic came upon us. I believe we had no option but as human beings to drastically and very quickly change. Business continuity plans were immediately implemented, and I believe that, at least for us, we were one of the first to approach the work from home scenario, which for us continues to today. As we represent a majority and quite a large number of ship owners and ship management companies globally, naturally with country borders closing, this had a huge impact on our business and our revenue, but not so much on the financial side of things, but more the welfare of what we consider as the most important customers in the maritime industry, which are the seafarers. So along with us and a few other global companies, we worked along with an alliance of leading maritime companies, along with different bodies and local authorities like the UAE authorities, some of which are part of this panel, to seek ways of trying to open up and trying to relieve the difficulties, to put it mildly, that the seafarers were experiencing. So definitely had a huge toll upon all of us. So we continue with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing more on the actions that were taken in this respect later today. And finally, Captain Yashem, if you would like to also share your input on how you feel it has impacted, COVID has impacted businesses and our industry.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, this is the regular glitch this time of the year, and we're always having this mic problems. Anyway, definitely the pandemic has led to a volatile economy. Even when the short-term effects end, the long-term economical impact will take years to resolve. Obviously, as a major player in the area, Bahri and Bahri Ship Management, we have been affected by the global pandemic and lockdown mainly due to the travel restriction, which is understandable. I mean, most of the governments, they reshuffle their priorities, and everyone wants to safeguard his own nation. Saying that, I think the pandemic has made the worlds come together, even to become more stronger, and collaboration between different entities, governments, companies, industries, working together to overcome this period.
Thank you very much for that input. And I guess the next question following up will of course be we have discussed now from our perspective a little bit how it has been fared. And I would like to now have some input on whether you feel that WHO and the governments in general have been successfully dealing with it, or where they have succeeded, where they have failed. Just some thoughts on that would be great. Captain Al-Hayas, would you like to go first?
Well, different government agencies was involved, and in many countries there was central agency, which is the emergency agent, for example, in the UAE, who took over, becoming the orchestra and organizing all the efforts between different government agencies. To be honest with you, everyone was doing their great job. The health department, they came with their guidelines, the immigration as well. There was some restrictions, airport was closed down, but the immigration was very helpful with us during the pandemic, especially at the start of the pandemic, although the visa for crew change was stopped. However, repatriation, signing off, has never stopped. So if any crew member want to go back home, we were allowing them as long as there was an airline ticket. It was helping some shipping companies, although you cannot change the master, for example, or the chief engineer, but you can bring the seafarers on board your ship to the safe manning, and you can repatriate the extra crew. So the immigration, they were doing their best. The port authorities as well, they were working very closely with us. We didn't have many options when every country is trying to safeguard its nations. At the beginning, to be honest with you, the pandemic has taken many nations by surprise. We were at the maritime industry, we were concentrating on emergency, for example, oil spill, piracy, but we were not preparing ourselves for such shock wave of pandemic. So the first months, to be honest with you, the government agencies took some time until they match each other efforts. To be honest with you, the most difficult things we face that many agencies, they don't know what we do at the maritime industry in the port or the shipping. And this is a global issue, it's nothing to do with the UAE. So you can see that some industries defending their industry, they are convincing the authorities, but when it's coming to the maritime industry, it is an old issues with the maritimes that maybe we failed as globally to market about the industry. It is in the dark, and we need more to show more about our industry. What is the seafarer? What is the shipping? What is the important? But in general, we were satisfied by all the government agencies' effort during the pandemic. Anyway.
Indeed, and you are touching upon a very valid and important point that was one of the main issues here. Nobody actually realized how these medicines and the food kept on coming to us. So maybe this was an opportunity to put us on the spotlight. Mr. Al-Bastaki, if you would like to also share your thoughts on this.
Thank you. We work very closely with the federal government and with immigration, with Dubai Health, when National Health. It was like big group. We are working all together. It was big challenge, and the good things, the UAE, there was already technically like online, everything. It was online. It was very helpful, and we was working with the port, and it was a big group. Not maybe they are not showing, but a lot of people, they was working 24 hours just to help these people stuck in the sea. It was even I thanks Captain Abdullah especially, because he was working very hardly, 24 hours in touch with him with a message and everything, just to help the people. The good things we try to, as Captain Abdullah say, other countries, they close. Sometimes we try to help them, and when June, July, we change around 50,000 people. They come to Dubai. We work with the immigration very closely, and immigration, they open the visa for people where the airports they open or the airline available, and a lot of people they travel. It was the big challenge. Alhamdulillah, we reach our target, and inshallah we hope this to continue with other portals and with other country. And sometimes, when we open here in Dubai, other country they close. It was the big challenge also for us. Or the embassy, they said, sorry, we cannot accept anyone now. Maybe they have to wait, or they have to stay in the ship. More safe for these people. And this was a big challenge for us. Sometimes they need food, they need water, they need a lot of things. This is headache. You cannot explain this one to the people. And we know how the people they're feeling who's staying in the ship. It's very difficult. Alhamdulillah, we have to inshallah soon all this we go on, and the life is coming normal.
Hopefully, that is very unfortunate, and hopefully maybe with some initiatives we will be seeing that changing. Lieutenant Al-Rashid, if you would like to share your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, from beginning of the lockdown, from the pandemic, the message of government was very clear. Collaborate with all stakeholders. There were many stakeholders from government, and internal and external. From that point, actually, it was clear we are seeking to be a competitive model for the countries of the world, and that's the ideas and opinion will be translated into action and application. And we work hard. It was our priorities, to continue our services with collaborate with our stakeholders. So it was. So we hope that we'll finish as fast as we can.
Thank you. And Mr. Matirata?
Yeah, I think, what came to the light when the pandemic hit was, you know, most of the countries started to get protectionism, right? They were more worried about their population initial stages because it was, if we take March, April, May, it was still settling in. And I guess the medical facilities in most of the countries were not able to handle or cater to the large number. So everyone started to have this lockdown. No one can fly in and out. And countries did get a bit to worry about their own people first, and which is fair. And I think the government responsibility primary is to their own countries wherever they are in the world. But however, that did impact the international travelers and primarily the seafarers who were stuck for a long time. And I think as it progressed, maturity set in, and various government opened up, with new processes, etc., realizing the enormity of the problem. But at some time, it was a bit surprising to see how a blind eye was turned to the seafarers, whom we all appreciated for getting goods day in, day out, and while under lockdown, sitting and eating the best of food, but still, having those poor guys stuck out at sea. So I think initially it was a bit of a inward looking, but as time progressed and other countries started to open up, I think it spread, and people are more open to it. While we haven't reached where we would like to, but I can say that we are on the correct path. And maybe today people are smarter, having learned something in 20, right? And we would be better prepared for these kind of things. And the government also, across the globe would work a bit more unified than just looking at their own nationalities at times. Yeah, thank you.
Thankfully, yes, we are seeing some improvements, and that's great, because I think what you describe is just how the situation is undoubtedly a humanitarian crisis at sea. Mr. Figueiredo?
Well, to talk about the positives in the UAE, I can say for a fact that during the pandemic, even though it was suspended to travel for a lot of people, we had special approvals from UAE immigration to send crew in batches of hundreds out of Dubai. And that would not have been possible unless they gave us those special approvals with police escorts right from the port to the airport. And the second, from a government perspective, I have to say a thank you to the FTA, because Captain Abdullah knows that they sent out these circulars very clearly stating that UAE is open for crew change and will facilitate that. And to have that notice, it was quite powerful because it gave people a lot of hope, and then got the ball rolling to say, okay, we have something in writing from a government authority. So I think that was a big positive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Captain Jim? If we're, can you hear us? Maybe. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, the whole industry is grateful for the UAE and its leaderships for their strategic approach during the pandemic. UAE is among one of the other advanced government who has helped the world to survive during the difficult times by implementing a well-defined systematic COVID protocols and allowed the crew changes. Once again, thank you, and many other advanced countries for facilitating the crew change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain. And last but not least, of course, Mr. Seaman, would you like to share your thoughts on how the governments have been dealing with it?
Yeah, thanks again, Gina. We believe that the World Health Organization, I think they were trying a very difficult task from the start of the pandemic. But we believe that in a professional and well-experienced international body, having dealt with these type of situations previously, did the best that they could under the difficult circumstances, and obviously rolling out the various protocols to the different countries. Basically, the UAE, I believe, and we believe, embraced this challenge head on. And I think one of the first things that they took on was to basically create the National Crisis and Emergency Management Authority body to work together to face these different challenges which would be faced. This quick action taken by the UAE allowed the country to be locked down very quickly, as well as the mandating of masks, which I think came as a shock to everyone. But very soon the population in the UAE realized the seriousness of this and also the importance of compliance with this. You did ask if there were any failures in the handling of this pandemic. I believe it's right to say that we cannot fault any, find any failures or fault any bodies on the way they've handled, because this was thrown at everybody at the same time, something totally untoward. And again, I do believe the UAE government handled this the best they could under the difficult circumstances that they were faced with. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much. So having covered generally that this has been obviously a great challenge for those working both, of course, at sea and at shore for everybody, I would like maybe a practical real life example from each of one of the main challenges that you have had to face on a daily basis during this crisis, and which maybe unfortunately we are still facing. Mr. Metirada, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I think thanks for that. That's quite a relevant question, and probably more emotional to some. So, having a few 100,000 seafarers globally, but for us, at any given time, over 7,000 of our colleagues out at sea. I think what really pained us was at times, and some governments or ports did not allow medical help to the seafarers. And I think that was something which was really, I would say, against the law of the land, where a seafarer or anyone requires medical help, which was being denied under a lot of pretexts. And yes, it was not in all countries, some of them, but for every individual, when he's denied one, it's important, right? So I felt over there that that part was a bit pain at times, where you have a seafarer who needs help and he cannot be, and it has to be managed on board. And we know on ship we don't have expert medical advice. We just have seafarers who can help out a medical officer. So I felt the humanitarian part got lost by some countries across, where they were willing to help out in these kind of emergencies also. Yeah, thank you.
Unfortunately, if only they understood the implications of this. Mr. Seaman, would you like to go next?
Thank you again. I think basically there were, and naturally there continues to be, many challenges which we as a ships agents are facing. Adapting to the change in regulations, working with the authorities and trying to keep up with the ever-changing scenarios, and obviously to support the authorities and to support our customers and the seafarers. Hasn't been an easy task, but and it's taken a lot of hard work from our frontline workers to ensure that this is handled in the correct manner. As has been mentioned previously, there were certain nationalities which either could not join a vessel in the UAE or be repatriated back to their home countries because those particular borders were closed. And as Captain Abdullah rightly mentioned, it's probably a good learning bit of information in terms of ensuring you have a diversity of crew members, so that in situations like this, it could be easier going forward. Basically, I think one of the hugest challenges which we've all faced, and especially the ship managers and ship agents, is the mental health and also the physical health, and unfortunately, in some cases, the death of crew members during these very stressful times. This has tested us as agents. Naturally, we've handled these types of things before, but I don't think on the level that we have. With Inchcape having their own marine survey division, which represents numerous global owners P&I clubs, we work very closely to, unfortunately, remove seafarer remains, and where we could have them repatriated back to their home countries and their families. So it's been difficult for everyone, and from our side, obviously, as I've mentioned before, the crew are the most important part of our business. As simple agents that we are, our job is to try and make their lives and their movements sign on, sign off as smooth and as safe and as easy as possible. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much. Not only of the business, there are key workers of the industry and of this world, which unfortunately many don't understand. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Figueiredo, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I mean, to talk about challenges. One of our biggest challenges is that ships are time bound and aircrafts are time bound. And we have to figure out a way, how do you get a crew from the port to the airport without missing either of those time events, right? So that's a huge challenge, getting all the regulatory approvals. And sometimes you go through the entire process and unfortunately, maybe one crew member is positive. Then he ends up staying behind, the rest go through, and he can be then in country for an indefinite time period until he is recovered to be able to board a plane. So these things are quite challenging, obviously, to deal with. And I agree with Ashish that in the beginning of this pandemic, we experienced that if there were crew on board ships who were unwell, since most of the resources, medical resources, were diverted to COVID, it was sometimes difficult to get them disembarked for other treatment, right? But over a period of time, this has now got better as the capacity in the hotels have, or in the hospitals have improved. But in initial stages, that was very challenging, and you could see it with the seafarers. They just felt stuck on the ship and they had no way to get off. Yeah, so that was a big issue.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Albas.
Yes, it was a lot of challenges. The most challenges we feel, they change every time, they change the process and the procedure. It was very difficult for us. Within seconds, they change everything. We coordinate with the embassies, with the airport, with the health authority. Suddenly, they change everything. It's very difficult. This was the big challenge for us. And sometimes we manage everything here. Other country, they close and they shut down everything. And the people, they stuck in the airport, in the ship, or in the port. It was a very big challenge for us. This is the most challenge I feel.
Surely, because then there's nothing that can be done. Captain Al-Hayas, would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Well, we were under a lot of pressure for crew change. UAE being a hub, I mean, Fujairah or Dubai, the airline or the airport connectivity is very high. So it is normal for most of the shipping trading in the area to stop in Dubai and do the crew change. So there was a lot of pressure on us to assist, and we tried our best. One of the challenges, I will see there was a lot of challenges to be. One of the challenge which was out of our hand, we have some seafarers, they were stranded at sea for a long time, exceeding their contract because all the countries are closed. And their travel documents has expired, their passports. So when they reach here at our anchorage, there is some formalities needed from their embassies, so they can disembark, they can buy their ticket, they can travel. Otherwise, the airline industry, as well, the airline company, they will not accept. Unfortunately, and it was very sad, that some embassies, some consulate, they were not taking care of their seafarer or their nationals. And such cases, I mean, we cannot do much. And some of the ships trade that if you will come to our port, your next port, you will reach it after a month, whereas the border is closed there, or you are going to the offshore industry. So it was very difficult, and we cannot, assist in such scenarios. But it's very sad. I mean, this was one of the difficult challenges we faced from some embassies and consulate, that they were not showing collaborations to their national. However, the Indian seafarers, they have very strong unions, they are very active embassies. It was totally different stories. Yeah. So the lack of cooperation was one of the challenges we faced from the embassies in the UAE supporting their seafarers.
Surely, I think there was an article at the time in Lloyd's List that was saying that if seafarers were tourists, we wouldn't be having these problems. And it's just, I think it puts things in perspective. Thank you very much for that. And Lieutenant Rashid, would you like to share your input also? can you hear us, or should your microphone is still muted?
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I would like to concentrate on two important things which happen between us and all our stakeholders or seamans. First thing, the seamans who are supposed to go to the hospital. So we use the emergency visas, which is allowed for them after report of the ambulance to take them to hospital for 7 days. It's a free of charge. And then after that, if they need more treatment, if they stay more at the hospital, so they will be under sponsorship of the agent. In addition, seamen who will be transferred to the airport, they were with several conditions because we are working with our stakeholders. So the PCR, it is important. The airline ticket, because the airport should be open, the other airport should be open. So airline ticket with the reservation, and then no objection from other stakeholders. And then immigration, they are taking care for them to take them to the airport, from port to airport, even they don't have visas. In buses, the immigration, they are arranging this for them. And this is what's happened actually. The two important things for us, it shows that our priorities, it is really to concentrate on the humanity situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing those experiences with us. And Captain Hashem, I'm not sure you were facing some technical difficulties if you heard the question. Basically, I wanted some practical examples of the challenges you faced on a daily basis during this crew change crisis.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, simply, Gina, is the travel restrictions, which is again understandable, even to the seafarers, as each government, as I said, trying to safeguard their nations at any cost. At the beginning, there were a huge denial and resistance from the seafarers themselves. However, they eventually understood the situation. Everyone have seen the cooperation and collaboration between and the efforts put in providing evacuation flights, chartered flights. Many companies continue to support their seafarers, their assets, by just distributing intensive bonuses for those affected ones, shouldering high-cost flights or hotels, etc. Yeah, yes, there were some of the embassies or countries that were not ready to deal with the pandemic, and there were, while others were very advanced, such as the Singapore, UAE, some part of Europe, where they put their strategic protocols and worked and responded very fast to the pandemic. I think this pandemic hopefully will end in the near future and will continue towards the next generation. This pandemic actually happened in 2020. It will be a different story if, for example, this pandemic happened 20 or 30 years ago. It would be much greater problem. So at least the resilience now of the governments, the IT, the resources, the people, everything has changed and will continue changing and development. This is a human nature. Survivor is a human nature and will continue to improve. Thank you.
It would be unthinkable to even, try and imagine how it would be 20 years ago. Before we go on to the next question, I would just like to say that we already have a lot of questions coming in, and the audience can continue to be sharing whether you're watching it live on Facebook, Marine Biz, Young Ship, or It's All About Shipping. And of course, via the Zoom chat, we will be taking questions at the end of today's panel. And my next question, before we go into maritime hubs, such as obviously the UAE, who have successfully dealt with it, is what gaps in policy have you seen, other than, of course, the definition of seafarers as key workers? And if these gaps can be breached, Captain Al-Hayas?
Well, one of the gaps, to be honest, and the most important is how strict you are in implementing the MLC, where some countries, for example, they are saying no seafarer should stay more than 11 months, and we can see AMSA, the Australian, they were very strict, and they have the right, because fatigue is one of the most causes of accident, and even the accident which happened for the bulk carrier in Mauritius, Wakasho, the first indication, they were saying it was not the final, but they were saying it could be the fatigue of the crew. So this is the issue which is the seafarer facing, that countries has ratified the MLC. It is implemented strictly in certain countries where they are protecting the seafarers' right when their repatriation or the crew change is available. And while when there is some other countries, when there is opportunity for crew change, the ship owners seeking to go to the other ports, for example, because maybe the travel is cheaper. So this is one of the gap we noticed as well. Later on, we discovered the gap that some charter parties agreement, for example, they are adding the clauses that no crew change, and I think the IMO was very strict in coming with recommendation to stop such a practice. So yes, there is a gap, especially in this region. Many countries, they didn't ratify the MLC, and this is an issue. We need to ensure that the countries in the region is in par with other countries when it's coming to the seafarers' rights, so as the ship owners all they comply with the same standards and regulations.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Metirata?
Yeah, thank you, Gina. I think important for me is that we need to walk the talk, right? So a lot of government said we need to do this for the seafarers. We will not allow people to stay long. But when the time came to support that or facilitate that, I think some backed out due to some internal pressures. So that was, I would say they had a policy, but the execution became an issue. Second is a lot of countries didn't allow their own seafarers to come back because if airlines was shut down or they had a quota of 1,000 people a week, we had seafarers stuck for a long period of time. So intentions were good, but when it came to the execution part, there was not a connect over there. So if that had been well coordinated, I think we would have achieved much more than what we did. So I think for me, important was, thoughts were good, but we really didn't see that happening. And I wouldn't say all the places. There were a few countries which were really not walking the talk. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Figueiredo?
Yeah, I think obviously this came as a shock to a lot of people, right? So it's hard to prepare for things in the short run when you don't expect an event like this to happen. So it took time for a lot of people, but I think now that there has been that cooperation and discussion and the dialogue, I think all companies and governments are a lot more prepared for this now. If it happens in the future, it will be dealt with hopefully much faster and better than it has this time around.
Thank you. Lieutenant Rashid?
Yeah, actually, from my point of view, I think we used it as a positive way because what's the procedure if it's not available? I mean, in our legislation, we can. It was very smooth for us to go to the federal law. If it's not in federal law in any article, so we have right to use the UN Convention for Seamen overseas. So it was actually from our side, we used it as a positive way. So it was very smooth, especially the procedure for us in Dubai.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Seaman?
We believe the pandemic has revealed many gaps, I guess, in many areas, not only in our industry, but as a whole. In terms of the crew's well-being, for us and as an industry to understand the stress levels, the mental health issues, and as mentioned, unfortunately, in some cases, the deaths. Could all this have been avoided? I don't believe fully so, because again, we believe the relevant stakeholders did the best they could under the circumstances that they were faced with at the time. I suppose the only gap which we could probably identify is if it's happened again, could we have taken action earlier? And as much as caution was needed, could we have possibly opened up earlier for crew changes to try and relieve the stress of the seafarers? Again, it's a big question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Alpastaki.
I think yes, as colleague Majid say, it was positive and we learned a lot. And the procedure every day there was changing and a lot of change. I think sometimes good for the seafarer. And we are learning. We have to close a lot of gaps between the procedure. And the good thing is what coordinate between other authority, between federal and national authorities. This was very good, and we hope, inshallah, we are still working, and we're learning a lot. I think this issue never close because always, the new thing is coming, and we cannot say today this is last and we close everything. No, always a new thing is coming, and the sea is big. Always open. We hope, inshallah, soon, and we can. How can we close it? We try to close it, or this procedure, and inshallah, this is what we can do now, right now.
Definitely, and I think as long as we're seeing positive initiatives and changes taking place as we go ahead, that's the most important thing. And Captain Hashem.
Yes, Gina. When it comes to the crew well-being and the gaps, the human and seafarer rights remain fairly defined. There are new scenarios, yes, but seafarers' rights and human rights remain protected and defined in everywhere. So again, I'm not in favor of saying that the countries, they don't want. I think everybody wants to chip in and help. The only issue is some countries are already prepared and more advanced, and some countries are not. Some protocols were already there, or they have the ability to define very solid protocols. And maybe some other parts of the world, they just starting their protocols. Again, some of the countries they were open for code change, then they shut down again, because most of it was actually like a chance for all the ship operators around the world. Once a port opens for crew change, you'll see everybody's diverting his ship there. Everybody wants to do the crew change there. Everybody wants to travel there. After that, what's happened in that country, the positive COVID cases rised up. Then they try to close it down, shut down, revise their protocols, try to control it, control the risk, then open again. I don't think any country wants to stop at all their business, because this is how all the food and medicines comes to the countries. So the only difference remains between if the country is prepared, ready for the such pandemic, has the protocols and the policies being laid down very solid or not. Thank you.
True. Thank you very much. And this is a work in progress, and we have to remember this. Of course, it's uncertain times, and nobody knows. There's mutations, and we're seeing this evolve day by day. So governments and authorities and owners and all stakeholders have to adjust. The UAE has, however, successfully over the past year managed it in one of the most positive ways. So it is a case study that we should be taking some takeaways from. And maybe I would like you to share how do you feel the UAE has achieved it, and what could, of course, be improved if there is room for improvement. Mr. Medirada, would you like to go first in that respect?
Yeah, sure, Gina. And I think over here, I must start by complimenting the UAE government, the agility they have shown in the COVID, right? Yes, initially, the world was locked down, But I remember, as someone mentioned, in June, July, the number of crew changes increased dramatically. And I think the flexibility which is being shown by the government over there today also is quite creditable. So for us, UAE remains a quite attractive place to do crew change, because it's the flexibility, the support you get. Unfortunately, someone turns out COVID. It's a very pragmatic approach which the government over there has taken, and I would really want to compliment is the agility they showed in transforming from where it was a lockdown to opening up the borders for seafarers to come in and go out, and supporting in that. I think we're really impressed with that, and we hope that others could also take a lesson and start to replicate the model they have done, or the commitment also shown by the government over there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Figueiredo?
I think UAE, the biggest thing that they've shared with the world is their capacity, right? So if you look at the airport in UAE, it has a capacity to connect a lot of flights from all over the world. It has a ground infrastructure for transport, for healthcare, and for hotels. And you need all those things sort of working together to enable crew change. So had they not opened that, I think a lot of people would not get back home. Right? So that was a big thing. The second thing, I've traveled twice now during the pandemic through the airports. And if you've arrived in the UAE, you will see that they're actually fairly efficient from immigration to do your testing and out of the airport. It's almost faster than what it was before COVID. So they've deployed so many people and they've done it so efficiently. I think that's a big job well done there. And the third thing is we have testing facilities widely available. And this move to online, right, by doing things on an app, getting your test result on an app, as to having to drive back to the testing center to get your result. All these things have helped and have made them, I think, the places where you do a lot of crew change today.
Excellent. Mr. Siwan?
Yeah, Gina, in terms of UAE being a success story, the answer, I think, is an outright absolutely yes. They were definitely one of the first countries to open their borders to allow the crew changes, as we well know. And as I've mentioned previously, with the setting up by the UAE government of the National Crisis and Emergency Maritime Authority, this basically led them to putting the measures in place to tackle and handle the pandemic on a local scale. And I believe that once they felt that they had this not under control, but where they needed to, they then looked towards their one of their biggest revenue earners, which effectively, besides natural gas and natural oil, is tourism. So this is when they saw the need to reopen their borders, but not only for the tourists, obviously to, again, open for the seafarers. So I think that one of the biggest or busiest ports, third largest bunkering port, which naturally is Fujairah, we have numerous movements there. And basically the floodgates opened up once they opened the borders fully to the crew changes. Us as agents were fortunately, prior to this, well prepared, having worked with the authorities and understood, as had been mentioned previously, the very clear and simple to follow protocols and guidelines on carrying out the crew changes, allowed us to be well prepared from road transport safety, our staff and our frontline workers to be protected and to ensure protection of those crew, as well as placing some of our own launch boats into Dubai, which was one of the first ports to open in the UAE, basically gave us the opportunity to get back to normality from having pretty much had no business for a period of, I guess, 4 or 5 months to pretty much handling about 3,000 crew movements in the space of 3 months, which was unheard of. So again, they did an excellent job, and I'm pleased to thank them and appreciate the close cooperation between the different government bodies involved and private companies like ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you, which surely must have meant a lot of work and a lot of sleepless nights. Mr. Ali Al-Pastaki?
I think the infrastructure of UAE, it was more ready than all countries. for IT, integration between other authorities. This is the most important, was to easy, you know, the accessibility with and how to deal with the pandemic. This is the most important for us. And even for crew change, you know, when they arrive to the port, there is special tent they make for them for testing, and this was very good. Immigration was very smoothly, no need to come, just online. They're doing everything. They review the visa, everything, you know. Even sometimes the passport, you know, they expire. They try to help them and to coordinate with maybe the crew. They don't know what's going on, you know, but they doing a very hard work. And this, I think, it was the most successful for me, the UAE. And the good things also, everyone, they have a decision. Everyone decision maker. Anyone, any authority, they can take a decision directly. And this is very good also for Dubai. For that, Dubai or UAE, they are moving very fast. No need always you have to go to the top and waiting months just to take a decision. For that, the UAE is moving very fast. This is, I think, from my side, I think for that UAE, they're successful.
Definitely one of the positives, and definitely less time consuming. Captain Al-Hayas.
Well, first of all, it is good to mention that since the beginning of the pandemic, no ships with the suspicious cases on board has been turned away from UAE. All ships with symptoms on board, the seafarers, when we ask everyone to provide us with health declaration, no ships has been turned away. We were sending medical teams on board. In some cases, we are taking seafarers to be taken care of at the hospital. And in this case, I would like as well to send my regards to the agents who was in the frontliners dealing with such cases, boarding the ships with the medical team. So this is something to be mentioned as well. The crew change was the hot topic at the top of the government in the UAE for humanitarian purposes. The UAE has participated in the international summit held in London. It was the UAE delegation has been headed by His Excellency, our ministers who's dealing or is responsible for the maritime affairs, to show our commitment to help and assist the seafarers. The UAE has been one of the first countries as well to consider the seafarers as key workers. The issues we faced was, and before we opened the visa for the seafarers, that the airport is shut down. It is either here or in the seafarers' countries. We worked very closely with some of the big companies who facilitated charter flight. So there was a crew change taking place in UAE even before we announced officially that the visa and the crew change is open. Chartered flight was taking place in the UAE. Some of the big companies like Boskalis, for example, they were gathering all their ships in certain days from the region in certain ports in the UAE, and the crew change is taking place. So we started to find ways and solutions as well to manage the crew change crisis. This will work with the big companies with high numbers of crew. It will not work with the small companies, but for future, those small companies with limited number of seafarers, it will not be feasible for them to charter their own flight, but cooperations will be required as well. When the crew change protocol came, we emphasized that should be simple. There is no quarantine as such. The 96 hours visa to facilitate the movement from the ship to the airport was based on the PCR test. If the result was negative, then the agent can take care of you and proceed to the airport. As well, we came with ideas, as you know, that there was some cruise ships, and the staff of the cruise ships are in thousands, as you are aware of. We came and we worked closely with those companies, the cruise shipping companies, where they transferred their staff from Abu Dhabi, for example, to one ship. So there was some ships lying in Abu Dhabi. The staff of those ships has been transferred by buses to one of the ships for Indian seafarers, I can mention. And this ship sailed out from UAE to India, where the crew has been transferred to override the issue of border closure or the not availability of the airlines. Yeah. So we came with ideas. We came with some ideas with the shipping companies. I hope that this lesson learned can be shared as well at the international organizations, learning from the lessons learned from the different countries will be very important. One of the ideas as well, we worked at the beginning as well before opening the airport was facilitating crew change through the sea. It will not work for the Filipino seafarer, but for Indian subcontinent, we saw some ships coming and conducting crew change at the anchorage. It was in limited numbers because the airport has opened, but we tried all our efforts to help and assist in this crisis. And a lot of things need to be done. It is not one nation, it is not one country's issues, and collaboration will be required to solve similar cases if it happen again in the future. The most important things that we should be preparing ourselves. The pandemic has taken us by a surprise. I hope if something happen, God forbid, in the future, we don't fall in the same trap as we are right now.
Very important and interesting perspective. I think the key that is coming through here is the collaboration and collaboration in these circumstances. Lieutenant Al-Rashid?
Yeah, actually, for myself, actually, one of our priorities, for us as a vital agencies such as immigration, to stimulate the agencies and seamen, and facilitate their entry, and of course, with all infrastructures being built here, especially in Dubai, facilitate their entry and enjoyment in the country. So for us, it was, we have, to study first the situation, and just I'll come with a new number. That's how it was a pressure on us. From beginning of the pandemic, all, especially the cruise vessel, they shifted from many other countries, and then they came here up to 13 cruise. They were in Dubai, so we shifted, transfer seamen and the crew from Dubai ports to the airport. Some of them with the availability of the airlines or flight, and some of them in charters, like same as Mr. Al-Hayat said. It was 6,200 something, the number. It was very, it's big number, while everywhere being stopped, what I'm thinking, what we have to study, to unification of the procedure in all ports, especially in UAE, and that maybe it is message for who's making the legislation here in UAE. So it won't be, there's the pressure on one port. As what's happened from beginning of the pandemic.
Thank you very much for that input. And Captain Hashem?
Yes, the world's in actually better shape nowadays, thanks to many advanced and mature governments, including the UAE. Which understood the severity of the situation at very early stages. They responded proactively. The government were highly organized, strategic, and took an advanced approach in conducted the activity in a phased manner. The whole world was looking. I will echo Captain Abdullah Hayas in this one. The procedures and the policies and the protocols in UAE were very simple, not complicated, to the point, and they are always able to come up with very reasonable solutions and resolve any other issues. The protocols were very dynamic and a lot of companies made their protocols, and they're still updating their protocols on daily basis. So the rules are changing every day. We don't see that in UAE, okay? So they are straight to the point, very simple, and the idea is to help everyone. Difference in UAE, they have a vision. They always tend to help and lead the countries by examples. They love their countries. They want to make the country one of the best country around the world. We're still seeing some very advanced countries, or we thought that they are very advanced, but they failed, unfortunately, during the pandemic. We've seen a lot of governments struggling during the pandemic. Most of the time, when the pandemic actually happened, a lot of the industry, the people in the industry, the shipping industry, they were looking mainly at two places, which is Singapore and Fujairah or UAE. When is Singapore going to open? When is Fujairah is going to open? That was the everyday question. So, then every country started to put their own protocols. Then stringing the protocols. Some countries, it's impossible to do a crew change there. It is possible. Maybe it's not okay. Sorry, I said it's impossible. It is possible, but it's really, really very hard to do a crew change there. The requirements are not as simple as not feasible. So that's what makes UAE different, and it is indeed a successful story to tell. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think in such challenging times when everybody has so much to do with, keeping the solution simple is probably has proven to be the most effective measure. And as we're approaching, and this is a discussion that could be discussed for hours, of course, but at some point we'll have to wrap up. So I will try and combat our last few points in a couple of more questions before we take audience questions. So definitely COVID-19 has brought to the forefront this crew welfare issue even more that we have been struggling to tackle for some years now. And I would like some thoughts based on everybody's backgrounds and the role and scope on how it will be shaping crew management going forward. And we are also seeing some great initiatives like the Neptune Declaration that are pushing for making crew workers seafarers key workers, and having them as a priority list of being vaccinated, etc. So any strategy going forward and thoughts, the greatest lessons, takeaways that we can take, it would be great if you could each share. Mr. Medirata, if you would like to go first.
Yeah, sure, I can do that, Gina. And I think a very important point you brought about was if I start with the mental well-being in the ship management, right? How will they focus? So for us, what we also learned is, and which has been a forefront, is communication. When you have people stuck in a place and they don't know what's going to happen, but how well you communicate and share everything and be transparent, that actually helps a lot to allay the fears they may have. And that also helps build up the engagement on board, because people can start to have negative feeling, but keeping them engaged during a crisis helps you weather the storm more effectively. And being engaged well with the seafarers. In fact, we also did with the families at home. So talking to them and reaching out to them, how we could support while the loved ones were still stuck on board, and for whatever good reasons, right? So I think for us, engagement was important, and we used a lot of communication and open communication with the vessels or the seafarers to do that. And coming to your second point is what do we do going forward? I think it's really important is collaboration, right? And it's just not between the two companies, but between companies and the governments also. Because how can we a partner in this? It cannot be a company's agenda alone or a government trying to help and others are not reciprocating, right? Because I know a lot of governments were open to do it, but then they wanted certain things to be done by the companies. Some were not willing to do, while the big ones were. So I think it has to be a partnership model over there, where we start to work towards a common goal as companies and governments. And I think that will help a lot. And probably we also need some more engagement or with the associations, right? If it's your association in Dubai or the unions or other shipping associations. So everyone has to come together, taking as an industry problem, and then trying to sort this out together and not leaving it to one to do it, because then we will never come out of it. And I can also say we will never go to pre-COVID days, right? It will be a COVID in a lesser format, or people will be strict for the next few years to come, and it's important that we accept it and we start to make changes in our procedures and see what is, as you said, do it simple, right? And that will just keep it going. So a lot to learn for everyone, and we should be proud of what we've experienced in 20, and I guess that goes for all the governments and the companies, and we come out well. We still have a distance to cover, but I'm sure with the learnings which have come, and we all are smarter compared to last year, we should be able to overcome the challenges going ahead. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Mr. Matirata. Mr. Seaman, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. I think what's important is that the crew management companies and the vessel owners have done what we believe to be the utmost they can to support the crew and seafarers, as well as working with the relevant authorities to enable the different countries to open their borders and obviously allow the crew changes. The fact that the issue still persists, and I guess with these discussions that we're having now, as well as the Neptune Declaration, these are testaments that shipping companies and government authorities want to get this crisis resolved, and they want to help the seafarers. I'm certain that they will find with the crew managers and various vessel owners that they're working tirelessly around the clock to find ways of boosting the crew morale. Obviously, to try and come up with sort of programs and initiatives to ensure the mental health, the physical health, the fatigue, etc., is all dealt with in the right manner. And I think what's also important is how they can ensure that these seafarers are able to communicate with their families back home. And today's technology permits that. And I'm sure Ashish would be testament as well to the fact that they very much support video calls back to family and friends as much as is possible, because this in itself can really go a long way, whereas we take these things for granted, and yet believe that the seafarers, for them, it's an absolute privilege to have that luxury, if we can call that. So just to move on to the next point, I guess in summary, that crew managers will be looking at their strategies and their protocols around maintaining the crew morale, as well as the mental and physical health, I guess through favorable normal situations, and as we currently are in unfavorable unnormal situations, and whether that be for the crew that are ashore while they're having rest or leave, as well as those that are obviously on board working to ensure the global trade continues. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lieutenant Al-Rashid?
Yeah, for myself, actually, I think we have to make platform to keep providing services and activation the use of technology, using the additional or digital solution to facilitate our services.
Thank you very much for that. Captain Hashim?
The lessons, I'll say, the well-being of the whether they're seafarers or normal employees, is the paramount to ensure the business survival. Companies should be well prepared for the pandemic and allow for the business disruptions from time to time, and establish strategic protocols and contingencies to improve the resilience and survival ability. As I said before, soon in the near future, this pandemic will end, and the seafarers and the people, we will live long to tell this story to our grandchildren. They might be possible pandemics in the future. We never know, but our resilience and abilities is getting better than ever.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that positive note. Mr. Figueiredo?
I think the big focus for us has definitely been well-being, investing now more time and resources focusing on this, how to help people whose lives have been disrupted, time pressure, work pressure, things like that. And to talk a little bit about this declaration, it's actually very impressive to see. If we talk about more than 300 companies coming together, many of them compete with each other, but they have found a way to take this subject and say, we'll agree on something in a very short period of time. So I think that's very promising for the future, that we can get things done if everybody agrees to come on a platform like this. And it's very clear, as Ashish says, that you need public and private partnership. Either party can't do it alone. It takes the full chain to enable people to get on and off ships, or ships to come in and out of port.
Exactly. And Mr. Oliver, thank you very much, Clay.
Nobody was thinking one day, feeling like this or this coming to it was no plan for this, and nobody was thinking one day we close everything. We just was watching the movie, but now all become real. And if you say New York, London, Dubai, everywhere in the world, the empty of people. Nobody was thinking one day to come like this. But I think we have to work very hardly to enhance a lot of things, to like a procedure and all this we have, and we have to work together again, not only internally, even internationally. We have to work very hard and enhance all this procedure to save our life and people's life. I think this is the most important for us. We have to work it.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And Captain Hayat?
Well, I will say in the maritime industry, in fact, we should always remember that this is a message for the ship owners and agencies, that your crew are your greatest asset. We have seen that in the past. Many owners, managers, and crewing agencies have taken their seafarer for granted. These are real people, not just names or crew list or manifest. We should remember they are very important component of the supply chain. Disruption, transport network and supply chain can significantly or majorly it will affect and undermine the world trade and economic. They are very critical component of the supply chain. Their welfare is very important. I hope in the future we'll see a shortened crew contract because when you are going for the 11 month, and if something happened like this, it means that you will need another 6 months to find a solution for your crew member, and to make our industry is more attractive to the young people. We should work to shorten our contract. There is now very cheap airlines nowadays, economies airlines, and we can use them and benefit from their services. And I'm thinking, to be honest with you, now the impact on this crisis, the crew change crisis, for example, for those students who just joined the maritime academies, for example, what reflection and what impression they will get from our industry. Somehow our industry is hidden in just of the news. You will see it in Lloyd's List or Trade Winds. People usually they don't concentrate and read much about our news, but the crew change crisis is published in all newspaper and broadcast on BBC and CNN, and you can read about it. Berg. It will not help, to be honest with you, to attract. I mean, there was a lot of effort in the past. We were talking about shortage of seafarers and how to attract young generation. What's happened is not going to benefit the maritime industry, and a lot of things need to be done. Them and to show them what's happened was exceptional, and Neptune Declaration and other declarations, a commitment by the industry that this is exceptional situation, that it is not the norm. The maritime industry has a potential. There is a lot of opportunities in the maritime industry, and we should send this message, and we should try to control the damage which occurred in the last months with the crew change crisis.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that you mentioned this, because when we talk about the future of shipping and unmanned vessels, it's not what we have in mind. We do want the seafarers to be there. They are the most valuable asset. And just like a final concluding point from everybody before we go on to audience questions, because there's a lot coming in. And this was the topic, of course, and the great debate of today's panel, if we have an ideal pandemic response model. Is there such thing as an ideal pandemic response model? Who would like to go first? Mr. Al-Barzaki, you've got your microphone unmuted, so I'll give you the honors of going first.
I think we have to work very hardly to put new strategic for all these things. You know, not easy to do it all this in very soon. You know, need long term and long time to do all these things, and we have to work all together with the government, all we have to go work together. Not easy to do it all this strategy. I think this is very important for us at this time to save our life, to save our business, to save everything. I think this is the most important right now. We have to do it and to work it together.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seaman.
Yeah, with each and every one of us in the maritime industry, obviously we've experienced the best and the worst of what this pandemic has brought upon us. I guess both in our personal, but also very much our professional lives. I think in a way, in a very short time, we've been forced to adjust and adapt and change. And I guess the lessons we've learned have hopefully and will hopefully prepare us better for the future to enable us to handle these type of crises a lot quicker, a lot better, combined, collaborate going forward. I'm not sure there's at this stage an ideal pandemic response model. I think we're all still learning, we're all still adapting, but I guess there's definitely a lot of lessons that have been learned and definitely taken away and will be taken away at the end of this situation. But what I would like to do while as we're concluding on this, these questions, I'd like to just specifically express sincere thanks and gratitude to some of the individuals on the panel, and namely Colonel Majid and his team, who are present and available to explore solutions and to overcome the challenges that we as agents continuously face. I'd also like to thank Captain Abdullah of the FTA for his generous support and tireless efforts, but I guess also towards the UAE flag vessels, essence on that. And I guess lastly, Mr. Mohammed Al-Mastaki, obviously manager of the marine operations at DMCA, who was also instrumental in supporting us in getting a lot of situations resolved and overcoming issues. But I think in general, we've said this through this panel and these discussions, the UAE government as a whole and everyone who's been involved, obviously we do not know every single one of them, but as agents, and I'm sure that Clive can concur on this, that we are extremely grateful for the support, assistance, because at the end of the day, it is our business. Our business, it's about looking after the people that allow the business to continue, effectively the seafarers. So thank you from us. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you. Lieutenant Rashid, can you hear us? Yeah.
Actually, always, I'll make long short, you know, following our methodologies, our government, we always coming strong in all crises that's happened to us here, you know. We always learn what's the positive way, how to make any crisis to be in our side, and we make it you know, as in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Medirata?
Yeah, from my side, I think if you ask a response plan, I don't think we can make an ideal one, but important is if we have the basic framework in place, then it's easy if you're agile, is to your reality. And I think agility for me would be important. And a plan, as I said, I'm a firm believer. It's a partnership model between the governments and the companies and the industry as such. And it cannot be one company trying to do it. We all have to come together. And I think there are some very good examples which have been seen. Also mentioned is in UAE, as I've said, it's a preferred port for us to do crew changes because of collaboration between the government and the various agencies and ship owners as how they've supported. And similarly in other countries also we have seen that. So for me, it's going to be, agility, a pragmatic approach, and we are all in this together goal. And, we should accept that. And yes, every time things don't go as we want, but how quickly we can alter the course, that's important, right? And I would also like to thank Gina, you for hosting it, and for all the esteemed panelists over here. It's been a good session, good to learn, and thank you very much to all of you helping us do the crew changes, right? So they spend endless hours and their teams, and they have really helped us tide through this problem, right? Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Captain Hashem?
I will echo the gentleman as again. We're still learning the ideal plan, but again, with such cooperation and such collaboration between the companies, governments, and different entities, these events, I am more pushing the countries working from other side, the ship owners, the agencies as well. We are working all to go towards one goal. So I think the area where we need to concentrate on is how quickly you can evolve. So luckily we have seen very good examples. For example, the UAE and other very countries who were evolved very quickly and respond very quickly. So hopefully the rest of the world can do the same, and speed of responses and collaboration and adopting to the situations.
Hopefully.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. And Captain Al-Hayas?
Well, I will say the ideal pandemic responses with collaboration with other entities and agencies and with the health expert as well. It will differ on the nature of the pandemic in the future. However, when it's coming to the maritime industry and to avoid what's happened this pandemic, for example, the one we are discussing during this meeting or webinar today is the crew change. Now, for ships when they are in emergency and they are in danger, we are assigning port of refuge for them to assist and help the asset and the cargo. One of the difficulties we faced, we were rushing to the health authorities, to the immigrations, to the concerned authorities, explaining to them the issue. And some of them, they don't know our industry and the seafarers, consuming time until you get the approval, until you discuss your measures with the hand and with the airline industry and so on. So similar to the things we have in the maritime industry with the port of refuge, it will be recommended, in my point of view, that certain ports from now on should be assigned in advance in Singapore and Philippines and India and Dubai. Let's take some ports. Let's open some windows in certain areas. They should be selected. And criteria, for example, the airline connectivities, for example, the traffic of the ships. So in similar cases of crisis, those ports and cities, they are in advance, has made the arrangement in advance with the immigration, with the health department, with the port authorities. The arrangement is in place. The emergency plan is in the place. That we have procedure with the airline industries. We have certain airline industries. We agreed with them in such case, if something happened, that we have their green light, they will cooperate with us. The immigrations, they are aware about the crew change requirements, the health authorities, they will work to us. Plan scenario and hub should be chosen. Dubai, let's say in Middle East, Singapore, Suez, some cities in the other, to ensure that understanding between all parties is made in advance for a smooth crew change. I will not have a pandemic, but I'm not sure about the next generation. I hope they will not go through what we have gone through again, and we repeat the same things. So this is one of the I will say a model I'm looking, and I wish that we work on it. Countries they in advance to prepare themselves with all concerned parties, that if something happened, we'll be ready, and from day one we'll click on our plan and will not face the humanitarian crisis we are facing today.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Being proactive than reactive is always the best solution. I fully agree with that. And of course, last but not least, Mr. Figueiredo, your thoughts before we go on to audience questions.
I think a lot has been said by everybody, but it's difficult to come up with one model. One of the things that is common, obviously, in these world events is things are dynamic, they're changing. Everybody is looking for information. Like, what is the current state of affairs? Where is it in every country? What is the situation? So one of the things that we did as Williamson is we set up an interactive dynamic map online for every port in the world. And we had our offices every day update that in real time as to what is the status of crew change and what's the cost of testing. And we actually set up a chat facility where we had members of crew families actually getting on a chat with us in different countries and saying, we have relatives on a ship in some place. Can you tell us what is the situation? And we were freely basically responding to these kind of requests. So I think the point being is, in this kind of, everybody here has some kind of resource or information, and they should use these events to basically share that freely for the benefit of everyone. I think that's an important thing in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you gentlemen for this panel discussion today. As I mentioned, discussion that could go on for hours, but unfortunately we've already run over time, and there's some questions here that I think are quite interesting to be answered. They're quite diverse, so I would ask the panel to answer what they feel most comfortable and related to their fields of expertise. The first question that came in here, and is quite interesting to see what the reply would be, maybe from the owners. So Marwan Mubarak, who is also, of course, the Vice President of Young Ship Dubai and Business Development and Chartering at Mubarak Marine, has asked what the implications of signing the NEPONES, if it has any limitations, and the advantages. Maybe Mr. Medirata and anybody else who feels they can add in.
Yeah, I can say that we are a signature to that. So our commitment from a seafarer's perspective, and while we are also ship owners and we have vessels on charter, I think we are working with various ship owners who have chartered vessel with us as to how we can support them during this and work together in resolving it, right? Rather having it, we have been quite successful in supporting our charter owners, and I think we will continue to do that in the most optimal way. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if anybody else has something to add on this, or if we can go to the next question. Okay, let's just go to the next question. We have here another question from the audience. UAE, it's an anonymous attendee. UAE flagged vessels have issues with crew change-ins where the crew must first arrive into the UAE under a visit visa and wait 2 weeks while the residence permit is approved, and of course the owners. What steps and solutions does the FTA and immigration have for this issue? So maybe if we can have from the respective bodies some thoughts on that.
Well, we have we received some inquiries regarding the for UAE flagships, and we issue 2 types of visa: the resident visa and the 96-hour visa, the first stage. we were allowing the visiting ships which is coming to the UAE. They are getting 96-hour visa. You proceed from your ship to the airport. There was a delay on the resident visa seafarers because it is connected with the whole resident of the UAE. So this came in later stage. We are helping the seafarer. We have some cases, but in general it has opened. But I'm not aware about particular cases. We receive some calls from ship owners, and we prepare some letters to the immigration, but it is limited number. It is limited number of cases. Maybe Major Majid Rashid maybe he can add on this. He's more expert on the visa issues.
Yeah, actually, from my side, we have two things: the foreigners ship and ship having the UAE flags. It is in one article, but foreigners vessel, they should have the agents in UAE. And this is very long, legislation. We have it. We're following up. But for any delay, maybe it's happened, but it not in a major situation or major number actually from our side. It's something, it's happened with the IT or with the different like no objection from security or no objection from other stakeholders, or sometimes we are having some issue in some nationalities. But in general, we are we are using 96. If some nationalities not allowed for them or something happened in the 96 hours, we have transfer crew or seamen from port to airport or from airport to port, in some conditions actually we are working with so no objection. It should be happen from all stakeholders. Like it is online procedure, but we should be aware of it. Like no objection of form of TA. There are some procedure in the tower. There are some procedure in Coast Guard, Custom. They have their own condition. So we cannot find out exactly where it is, but in general, the procedure, I can say it is very smooth in general in UAE actually, and we are working for it. In one most important things to unificate the procedure. The procedure in Dubai, it is same in Abu Dhabi, even in time.
I think it's quite important to understand that it's very uncertain times and everything is evolving daily. So some patience is required, but definitely the UAE has taken, incredible steps in this respect. So that is something that has to be acknowledged. Two more questions, allows us to take a couple of more questions. There's another one that has come in here from Thomas Joyce, coming from the perspective of an online marine travel provider and the difficulties that were faced during the early months of the pandemic, where numerous flights were cancelled and travel was severely constricted. Was a ship manager or crew manager to handle the crew travel themselves instead of using an agency? How have the costs increased? What efforts have been made to optimize the situation? And will this measure stay in place after the pandemic ends? Some thoughts on that? Maybe Mr. Figueroa, you would like to add something? Mr. Figueroa, can you hear us? I think that might be a question that you could...
Sorry, I thought that would have been for a ship manager or a ship owner. So I'm not really sure I'm the right person. So could possibly help there?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. So, first of all, we have a big travel agent who manages for us, considering we have in a week 600 people flying. And yes, and at times we also use charter flights to get our crew across in certain locations where we could hustle up 250, 300 crew members to fly to some location. So travel has become expensive, and I hope with more and more airlines probably opening up, we should moderate it. But I still feel that the travel agencies will continue to be an important part in crew changes going forward, because that would be more cost effective than owners trying to do everything on their own. I hope that answers the question.
And Captain Yasher, maybe you would like to add something on that.
Yes, exactly the point which Mr. Rashid. During the pandemic, we have actually been working with major, even before the pandemic, with major travel agencies, and we are happy with them, and they're happy with us. However, during the pandemic, there was a lot of disruptions, and they couldn't find flights. So the beauty of it is everybody was trying. Some of them the money, some of them the port agencies, some of them their government, their embassies. So yes, there were some flights outsourced from different areas, evacuation flights, combined charter flights, or whole charter flights. It happened, and it came at a really costly, and also not only the cost. It was actually very difficult to depend on it. So I don't think we can continue like this forever. That's why everybody was looking, and when is the normal commercial flights will come back. So I think everybody was forced, the shippers, to relieve the seafarers and continue the business. But I can't see it happening for a long time. That's why we have these great travel agencies.
Yes, exactly. I mean, these were exceptional times that required exceptional measures, but everybody would be much happier seeing things going. And maybe there's one last question that we could take. Again, it's from an anonymous attendee who is asking, have you noticed differences between protocols regarding seafarers working on OSVs and for those that are working on cargo vessels? In some places around the world, it's much easier for vessels that are employed by energy companies than it is for cargo vessels. And also in some cases, platforms rings foreign crew are subjected to much more enabling protocols than those of foreign seafarers working in the same countries. Any volunteers to clarify a few points?
I'd say maybe a little bit about that, Gina, in the sense that OSVs generally, let's say in the UAE, may work in restricted areas offshore, right? And some of them will be coastal operations, so there's an involvement of these residence permits. And as opposed to cargo ships, which may be coming from international waters, procedure for them can be slightly longer or more stringent to effect a crew change than you would a cargo ship.
Thank you very much. Who is there anybody else who would like to add a point on this from their personal experiences, or if they have come across the situation?
I have some cases. I mean, some of the offshore oil companies, they don't want to have any disruptions, especially in the oil industry. So voluntarily, for example, they are quarantined. Some of the companies, their crew, they don't want, for example, especially at the first months, to take some of their accommodation park where they have their employee who's serving the oil fields. So there was some restriction imposed voluntarily by those companies, but as Mr. Clive has mentioned, who's working especially in the UAE, there is some extra requirements because very sensitive areas, and this is the cause maybe some of the seafarers that they feel there is a difference between the crew change procedures for visiting cargo ships and for them to join their fields in the offshore industries, and which required extra measures. The crew change was taking place regardless of any small delays occurring for the seafarers.
Thank you very much for clarifying that point. I think that we need to wrap up here because we've already run over time. Thank you very much to all of the distinguished panelists for being here today. It was a pleasure, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I trust that we've put out there some valuable input, and the importance of our seafarers comes first and foremost, of course, as a vital asset to this industry, and then needing, the need for agility and collaboration and communications, which was something most of you included in this discussion today. Thank you, of course, to the audience for joining in from all over the world, to Young Ship Dubai for making this possible as the first event of the year. I hope it may be a very successful year for the association. And of course, to the supporters, the local authorities the Federal Authority for Identity and Citizenship, Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, Maersk, Wilhelmsen Ship Management, Bahri Ship Management, Aries Marine, Nimboligo, Mubarak Marine, and media supporters, Marine Biz, Marasi News, and of course it's all about shipping to everybody. And let's hope that 2021 will be a year of continuous improvements only, and only positive changes going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much all.